Hampshire, Ms. Kuster, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for being with us and to all the caring families that are here with us today as well. Thanks to the introduction of the MMR vaccine 56 years ago, the vast majority of families in the United States have never had to experience measles firsthand. Perhaps the fact that measles is so rare now has contributed to the misunderstandings about the disease itself, its potential severity, and the threats posed by the outbreaks. And you've both testified to us today about how measles poses a public health threat, and we have evidence ongoing right now as these pockets are, the contagious nature of the disease is being demonstrated in these communities with low vaccination rates. We've been fortunate in New Hampshire to have very high vaccination rates, and thus we've not experienced, and I should knock on wood, an outbreak of measles in the Granite State. But recently, we have a new threat, and that is an outbreak of hepatitis A. Hepatitis A is not currently a required vaccine in New Hampshire, though it is in 13 states. I'd love to ask you, are you concerned about that the continued distrust of vaccines, like the MMR or hepatitis B, will detract from efforts to vaccinate for future maladies, and in particular, in this case, hepatitis A? And how concerned should we be in terms of protecting my constituents from outbreaks of new pathogens, including hepatitis A?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. In the equation that a parent has in terms of what they believe is the risk of disease and the safety and effectiveness of vaccine, if they don't see the disease as a clear and present danger, sometimes they don't vaccinate. But when I try to talk to families and parents about immunization, I don't want to scare them into getting measles vaccine. I want to increase their faith in the U.S. immunization program and in the immunizations that are part of it, so they don't just get measles vaccine, they get all the recommended vaccines.
And could you comment for something like hepatitis A that's not required as a vaccine in most states, how do we get to the point where we would have herd immunity, where people would be safe from this public health threat? And how do we go about educating the community of what the risks are to individual families with hepatitis A?
I am sorry to say that I am not enough of an expert in the hepatitis A vaccine to answer that, but we'll certainly get.
Could you answer just generally about herd immunity?
Sure.
Not using hepatitis A per se, but just the concept of getting us to the place where most people in the community are safe from a particular pathogen or contagious disease.
So the concept of herd immunity is that by vaccinating an individual, you don't just prevent them from getting disease, but you also prevent them from transmitting it to others. And what that means is that in a community, individuals who, for example, can't get the vaccine because they're too young or they have some kind of illness that prevents it, are still protected by the cushion of protection provided by their community. It's a really important concept, and it's why we as a society need to take care of those most vulnerable children.
Hepatitis A is a bit different than measles, as we all know, for a number of reasons, is that if you look at the level of herd immunity that you would need with measles, it's really 92, 93 to 95%. It's much
quite
less
high.
so. It's much less so with hepatitis. Hepatitis A is something you want to avoid. You can avoid it. It's a really good vaccine, and it's a safe vaccine. It tends, unlike measles, which is essentially an equal opportunity microbe, in that it is, as we've seen the outbreaks of hepatitis A, they are very much more skewed towards homeless individuals, individuals who are in a situation where hygienic issues are a problem. We've seen outbreaks in different cities throughout in Nevada and Las Vegas and other places. So it is a preventable disease, and as Dr. Massonia said, we would encourage people to embrace the entire vaccination program because we have vaccines that are preventing diseases that were problems years ago.
Well, thank you for your work. We appreciate it. And certainly as a mother, I appreciate keeping my own family safe. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady.